In example 1, we're asked to find each number, and obviously from this section, that involves finding the percent of a number. And we have two main methods. The first is we can convert the percent to a decimal. The second is that we can convert the percent to a fraction. And you'll get better with practice in recognizing which problems to use a decimal, which problems to use a fraction. They'll both work, but typically one is a lot easier than the other. With part A, we're given 5% of 60. Well, since 5 and 60 both share a common factor of 5, chances are this is going to be easier in using a fraction. So we have 5/100ths, which is what 5% is written as a fraction. If we reduce that, 5 divided by 5 is 1, 100 divided by 5 is 20, and then we multiply 1/20th times 60, that equals 60/20ths, which equals 3. Now we could go ahead and multiply this as a decimal as well, so we'll go ahead and show that. 0.05 times 60, and you can actually go ahead and just scoot the 60 over, put the 0 on the end, and then add it at the end, because essentially that's the same thing as 0.05 times 6, and then multiply it by 10, which is the same thing as 0.05 times 60. Then multiplying through, 5 times 6 is 30, 0 down, carry your 3, 0 times 6 is 0, plus 3 is 3. We have two decimal places with the 0 and the 5, so we move the decimal place over 2 places to give us, again, 3. With part B, we have 94% of 33. There aren't really any common factors. 33 has factors of 1 and 33, and 3 and 11. 94 isn't divisible by any of those, so chances are it's going to be easier to use a decimal. And anytime you have a repeating digit, it's usually easier to put that number second, and you'll see why here in just a second. 4 times 3 is 12. Carry your 1. 9 times 3 is 27. 28. Now, since we're multiplying by the same digit that we did before, we know the values are the same. So we just add the 0, move it over, and then add. We had two decimal places, so that gives us 31.02. Go ahead and make that 2, or try to make it a little clearer. Now, just to show that we could use a fraction, I'm not going to work through the problem because it does make it more difficult. And there's no real point unless you're checking, and you could do that using your calculator. Both 94 and 100 are divisible by 2, so 47/50ths. And then we'd still have to multiply that by 33. There aren't any common factors between 33 and 50, so we'd have to multiply 47 times 33 and then divide by 50. And that's a lot longer process than simply multiplying by the decimal. 11% of 65 for part C. And again, we have a similar situation as part B. And essentially what that amounts to is that because there are no common factors between 11 and 65, it does make the problem a little more difficult. In this case, 65 and 100, which would be the denominator, would share a common factor. So we can use a fraction. It's not going to be as bad as part B, but let's start off with the decimal, because that probably is the best route to take. Although, again, feel free to use whichever method you like best, because both will give you the same answer. Notice again that I put 0.11 as my second term in the multiplication problem. That's because we have the repeated digit of 1, so it's 5, 6. Put down your 0. Since it's 1, it's just 5, 6 again. Add. We have two decimal places, so that's going to give us 7.15. And then finally, just to show it, we have 11/100ths times 65 over 1. 100 divided by 5 is 20. 65 divided by 5 is 13. And then it does become more complicated because I have to multiply 13 times 11, which is going to be 10 times 11 is 110, plus 3 times 11 is 33. So 110 plus 33 is 143. And then we still have to divide that by 20. So then we have 143 divided by 20. 20 times 7 is 140. There's a decimal here, bring down your 0. 20 goes into 30 one time, and then 20 goes into 100 5 times, which is going to give us, again, a solution of 7.15, but a little bit less tedious to just use the decimal.